Assalamu alaikum, everybody there. And inaugural session was really good, mashallah. I enjoyed some part of it. I could not go through all क्योंकि यहाँ रात हो गई थी. So without wasting time, let us start this. My topic is about the some of the Quranic verses I will be discussing, which supports the conservation of biodiversity and safety of environment. Now we know, everybody knows from the very beginning that without the support of biodiversity and a good environment, the conducive environment, it is very difficult for the mankind to survive on this planet. And if we don't have a conducive environment, even thinking of a human being will be not proper. For example, at this time, there is a hostile environment for Muslims in India, and we cannot really think properly. Our young generation are under pressure. However, I will be only limiting my talk to the, now for the conservation of biodiversity, the number of the national organizations are busy, but despite of that, it has not been effectively funded so far. And the safety of biodiversity environment is so important that when I started doing research that how Quran or Islam supports the biodiversity conservation, I found out that not only Islam, but all the religions of the world supports the conservation of biodiversity and safety of environment. Now, although the Quran is divine book basically for Muslims, but it contains directions and directives and teachings for entire humanity for peaceful and purposeful living in this world and hereafter. Here the Quran doesn't limit only this planet, but it talks about the alameen. So all the alams, that is the beauty of Quran. And the Quran is only not such divine book. Earlier also the prophets came and books have been revealed on the mankind, but all have the essence of conservation of natures. And most of the religions like Christianity, Judaism, Islam have the essence of Zoroastrian philosophy. And that is close to the nature also. In the Quran, there are over 700 verses which describe the importance of nature safety and the environment and their conservation. Biodiversity, what is biodiversity? Some people may ask. The biodiversity is the sum total of, I will go to that slide later, but here I just mentioned that the two books which I wrote while I was doing my research, basically I wrote in English, that's why I'm talking in English, but I wrote in Urdu also these two books. And this was the one of the importance of wildlife conservation from Islamic perspective. It was published in 2003. And another one, biodiversity conservation ethics in major religions. So here I did the comparative study. And while inaugurating this, in the inauguration of reveal of this book, it was done in Aligarh. And for both the books, I am very grateful to the university that they provided, the authorities provided me leave on academic pursuits to do these two books. And I took about 10 years to complete, however. Now in these books, I have discussed 80 Quranic verses and some important hadiths, as well as the philosophy of Sufism, but here I will be limiting only to the Quran. In this presentation, I highlight a few important verses of Quran that emphasizes conservation of the nature and biodiversity. Now, what is biodiversity? It's a hayat. Biodiversity is sum total of all living forms. Now, it is a little different from the wildlife because wildlife is also biodiversity. Some people may confuse, but there is no confusion. The biodiversity includes all living forms at a given time at a particular place, whereas the wildlife is that those animals or plants which can sustain by themselves, they live in the wild, they don't require human support. But biodiversity includes human, agriculture, and all other, even in the zoo animals, the animals, the zoo or anywhere, that is the biodiversity. So that is a little difference. Now the biodiversity is manifested at 4 levels: at the gene, species, and habitat where the animals live, and the ecosystems, the system where these all occur together. And with the health of these ecosystems only we survive. Now present diversified life forms inhabiting mega, macro, and micro biodiversity zones on Earth consist of many millions of biological species which are products of our billions of years of creation and evolution. Now here I have little bit to explain what is creation and what is evolution. Now the biologists believe that evolutionary process is there, and not only biologists, even Jalaluddin Rumi has written about the evolution, and many other Islamic scholars have talked about that. There is no contradiction between evolution, but it is based on the creation. So we believe that Allah Ta'ala created all the animals and plants and this universe and other universe, and then there were species and subspecies, and all still some of the species are known, but many are still not known to the mankind. So we have, that's why we have research going on. Now this biodiversity is not distributed uniformly on the earth. You can see that there are some areas where we have the circles, they say the biodiversity hotspots, and these are endemic species, as well as the number of species are also more there. India is also bestowed with very rich biodiversity zones, and you can see that there are 10 major biogeographical zones, but there are some minor zones as well. And Western Ghats, this Western Ghats and the Northeast are the real biodiversity rich areas of India. Although there are other places also, except the deserts, there are not that much rich for the biodiversity. Now, the conservation is not preservation actually. It is a wise use of natural resources, which also Quran says, I will say in the subsequent ayah. We don't claim that the conservation is preservation. That has to be really cleared between all of us. That we can use natural resources, and that with wisdom, that how much Quran also says, gives the directions for that. We will come to that later. And all these civil advancements, religious teachings are still by far the most abiding factors for the human beings. These are the most abiding guidelines. I will tell on slides here that there are various schools of thoughts for the categorizing the religion of the world, and early Western scholars have said that there are only 3 religions: Judaism, Christianity, and paganism. But the world's 6 major religions are Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, animism, Christianity, and Hinduism. Now Hinduism, of course, it is a culture, it is not, it is a composite culture, is called Hinduism. There is a lot of discussion on that. I don't want to go that. But if we go from the major religions adherents, the number of them, this picture is given by the Wikipedia, and I took from there, so I have nothing to say on that, but just I took it here to compare with how many people of a particular religion's followers are there at this time in the world. But there are 4,300 different sects out of these religions. So it is a very complex phenomenon, and it requires a lot of discussions and deliberations separately. All these factors, different types of religions, and it is listed about 22, it is sort of religions, But the faith, if you go that, there are more than 4,000 faiths on this planet. Now let us come to the topic. It's the Quran we are discussing. And what are the features, the main features of Quran? It is the actual word of Allah, not created, and revealed for the benefit of whole mankind. It's for the mankind, it is complete and comprehensive. It is theoretical and practical book, not only moralizing, but also defining specifically the permissible and forbidden. Anywhere you see in the Quran, it is always said, you do this and don't do that. You do good things and don't do the bad things, not only for you, but for the others also. Allah has preferred his religion for all mankind with the revelation of the book. It is Allah's eternal miracle revealed to Prophet Muhammad and for succeeding generations. Now, this is a very interesting clause that the Quran is, it was although revealed on Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but it is for the succeeding generations as well. So this is one of the main features. It contains the complete code that provides guidelines for all areas of life, whether it's spiritual, intellectual, political, social, or economic. So Quran doesn't have left any part of human sustenance that is not discussed in there. And our domain, that is the wildlife or biodiversity conservation, are among all these. They are economic, social, as well as political also. So that's why we have to discuss such things when we are discussing the other impacts of Quran. And another feature is Allah has taken upon himself the duty of preserving the Quran forever and in its entirety. It's not that part of it can be taken and part of it cannot be. Nowadays, there are a lot of discussions that this part should be taken away and that part should be, it is not that. And it has been revealed to re-establish the sincere worship of Allah alone. So that is that we have to have the faith in that, and then only we can get the essence. Another feature, which is not mentioned here, but I would like to say that the Quran is one book that being researched for last 400 years almost after the completion of it, and it will continue till Qiyamah. I think there will be discussions like us we are doing today. There have been a lot and there have been written a lot. So this is a real miracle of Quran, that there is so much of research going on and many books have been written on the explanation of the Quran. This is another great feature and the miracle of Quran. Now let's go to some of the Quranic ayahs which support. Now the number one first is every living thing is made of water. Now we all know this, and the Quran said it long back, that in the Al-Ma'idah, Al-Anbiya, ayat 30, and Al-Furqan, ayat 54, clearly says, Kulla shayin hayyin afala yu'minun. Now this one clause of the ayah, Kullu shayin hayyin afala yu'minun, and knowing that the water is a lifeline. Now this was known to Quran. Of course, Quran came from Allah. Now these are the really support which we think over that Quran itself says the lifeline of survival of mankind or all other animals are the water. And now we destroy water so much. So Quran prohibits this. I have given here in the end, if you see Wildlife International, the Wetland International, IUCN, WWF, all these support the conservation of water. And if we don't have water, we will have nothing. And if we have more water also, we will have nothing. So we have to have a balance. I will tell another. Now, we know that all the organisms have 80% of water. And the cellular form is larger, so we have to have. On the planet, we have plenty of water, but the salt water is there. The potable water is only 1%. And it is very costly to desanitize the seawater. It's expensive as well as difficult. So we have to conserve our water in all forms the wetlands. What we are talking, when I say the water, I certainly mean that the fresh waters. Another several ayahs of Al-Anam, Al-Nahal, Al-Mulk say that all the animals and the plants even live in the balanced ecosystem. And this coexistence is a very, very important factor, because we know that it is the food chain and food web. Many of you also may be knowing, you all are a scholar here, mashallah. We are living in an interdependent society or complex situation. So in that, if we don't have the support of the biodiversity and we don't have a good environment, all these coexistence is not possible. And this concept of balance will go. So we have to think about that. Another very interesting feature is there if you read the...
Sir, can you hear me? Please conclude your talk.
Okay, I will. So all this ayahs reveal that we have to consider about the nature conservation, because they are supporting us in a very big way. And these all, another which I want to also mention here before I conclude, that Kulu washrabu wala tusrifu. The Quran says very clearly that all the things have been created for the benefit of the man, but in the balance. So don't waste, don't be wasteful. Sustainable biodiversity, I'll skip these because the time limit. I go on the conclusion. So how do we do that? When we say about that all religions have supported nature conservation and Quran has supported that also, how do we do that? So we have to do something which are actually practical. So we have to practice. We have to listen to the people who are here. We have to go through the researches which has been done, and to have a crux of the problem, I just gave here the 4 R's. Reduce using the products as much as possible. Reuse the products as much as possible. Don't waste it. Recycle it. If you are not using something, give to others. They can be recycled. And the last, very important also, is that rethink whatever we say or write or anything. We should rethink about that, whether it is going to impact on the person or the place or the product. So those all things are very important. I also given a slide for the people who would like to go further information about these things. These are some of the organizations. They are really doing very good jobs for the conservation of biodiversity through the fabric of the religions. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And the organization Idara, I hope the proceedings of seminar will be useful for the whole mankind. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.